o'clock. We'll call the December 12th school committee meeting to order. Mrs. Hillman, can you please call the roll?
Yes. Mrs. Cormier.
Present.
Mrs. Hurst.
Present.
Mr. Lafreniere. He's absent. Mrs. Layton.
Present.
Mrs. Palavin.
Present.
Mr. Schwartz.
Present.
Mayor Nicholson. He's absent. Superintendent Pellegrino.
Present.
And Amber Cameron, student rep.
Present.
And back to the roll call, John Lafreniere.
Present.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Hillman. We'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving on. Open time for the general public. Is there anyone who would like to be heard? Seeing none, we'll move on to the recognitions by the superintendent for the John Abigail Adams recipients.
So this is one of the fun. Sorry about that. It's one of the fun parts of the job. Yeah. We saw that I didn't though. Correct. All right. This is one of the fun parts of the job. You know, frankly, this is recognizing some of our excellent students and the hard work that they've done, which has really paid off. The John and Abigail Adams scholarships is one of those scholarships that really helps a lot of our students get tuition free at any state college. But it's also just a recognition of their hard work and dedication to their academic studies. So I'm thrilled. This year I think we have 37 names. Usually we have around 25 to 27. So we have about 10 more students this year who are receiving this award. So it's a double pleasure for me to be doing this today. So what we'd like to do is recognize each one of you that's here, but we're going to recognize everyone. So we're going to call up everyone's name for the cameras that are on and make sure that their names announced. But afterwards, if you wouldn't mind just hanging around for a second, we'd like to just get a group picture, if that'd be all right. Because I think this is a great chance for the school committee to see some of our excellent students and families and the supportive members, because quite frankly, a lot of you parents weren't sitting here, they would be doing this well. We all know that. So, excellent. So, with that said, we have.
Want to hand out while I read?
That sounds good.
So if you are present, then you come forward for your certificate. Erin Arlock. Julia Benoit. Kayla Dupez. Christine Bodu. Cameron Blatko. Trevor Boudreau. Charles Bragdon. Jennifer Brandberry. Sarah Bravo. Shauna Brearley. Ellen Brooks. Justin Shipman. Candace Johnson. Natalie Cooper. Alex Andrea Cragen. Stephen Kaj. Joshua Gifford. Rosalie Gonzalez. Shadej Goodman. Sky Green. David Haley. Daniel Kidwell and Jeffrey Kidwell. Connor Mechtel. Lydia LeBlanc. Jack Levesque. Nathan Lilly. Tegan McManus.
Excellent job.
Anita Peters. Elizabeth Sawyer. Maya Susi. Grace Sweeney. Okay, I'm gonna get this name right. Azucena Tebow Munoz. How did I do? Is that bad?
It wasn't horrible.
That's a low bar.
Tiny, Javon Bias, Juliana Wentworth, and Lucas Weston. Oh, you're gonna talk on 2 pages. There's 3 vault recipients.
Yes, I'm not sure if any of the goals.
I'll read the names. Maggie Campbell, Shannon Caponero, and Caitlin Thompson. That's it.
If you mind, just, what we typically do is we kind of go right in there in front of the elevator, and we just get a quick group photo for the paper tomorrow, if that's all right? Well, maybe not tomorrow, but in the next couple days.
Yeah, we'll take a brief recess.
Okay.
What's that?
All right, we'll call the meeting back to order. Moving on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion on the floor?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Schwartz, seconded by Mrs. Leighton. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on to the subcommittee reports. Facility Subcommittee, Mr. Schwartz.
The Facilities Subcommittee met on November 17th. I had asked Mr. Anderson to provide the staffing from Morris Cleaning Company, the company that cleans our school buildings, with the staffing, of which he did, and you were supposed to get a copy of it. I don't know whether you did or not, But just to give a summary of what the staffing consists of is, at the high school, we have 8 people, to include 1 person on the weekends, and another person that serves lunch from 10:30 to 1:30. At the middle school, we have 7, and we have 1 person as a day porter, works from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., and 1 person covering lunch from 10:30 to 1:30 p.m. At the elementary school, we have 7, and to include 2 as day porters. That's obvious because of the magnitude of the building. And 1 covers the shift from 6 a.m. to 2:30, and the other one is from 10:30 to 1:30 p.m. 2 positions are yet to be hired. At Helen May, we have 1 person from 3 to 5, and then goes to Elm Street School from 5 to 9. And then we have in the central office 1 person from 9 to 12. Then there is a supervisor and a manager, and those are Maura's management people. I had inquired with Mr. Anderson about a wooden platform that, if you haven't noticed, at the elementary school, and all I saw on it were flowering plants. I says, what is that for? We're building this to store plants. But actually, what its purpose is an outdoor classroom. In fact, which is pretty amazing, I think, to have class outdoors, obviously when the weather is much better. In fact, Mr. Anderson kind of collaborated with the, what do we call him, the landscaper, to ensure that larger trees were planted around that platform, so that would provide shade during the warmer and better weather. So that's good. There are, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but there are 2 streetlights that got whacked by heavy delivery trucks. So we're in the process of determining how to go about repairing them. And then we're also studying a process, I think the general contractor is doing this, is to turn those street lamps from facing the street 90 degrees. I don't know which way, doesn't matter, just turn them 90 degrees, and then we're able to focus the beam of the lamp, that street lamp, to the road. So we're working on developing a plan of what's required to do that. The Elm Street School playground pieces were moved and have been installed at the elementary school. The rubber poured base for the playground will not be poured until next spring when the weather is much warmer. And currently, what we're using now are rubber chips. I know I've said wood chips, but I went by there Sunday and I noticed the rubber chips installed throughout the playground. And that seems to be much softer than wood chips. Discussion again, I think I mentioned this on a previous meeting, but discussion again on the lights that seem to be on 24/7. However, I did note some of the street lights, or most of the street lights, were off as I went through Sunday, and Mr. Anderson told me that those are on a dusk to dawn type switch, so it's all dependent upon the ambient light. However, the internal electrical system for the lights is much more complicated, so evidently we purchased an extremely complicated, I guess the word to use, electrical lighting system that everything hinges on something else. And the contractor that put that in, I had heard that it would take at least, I think it was 6 weeks, it was either 9 weeks or 6 weeks to straighten that out. However, he's finding a more difficult problem because there are miswirings to contend with, and there are relays that control this system throughout the system that are defective, and those have to be found. So the difficulty is adjusting each room separately to work off the main system, and hopefully that will be done within 6 weeks. 3 weeks have gone by, so we have 3 weeks to go. I'll keep you posted. The significant completion date was arrived at and agreed to as of September 9th, and a certificate was signed by all parties to that. Yet we do have, we're in school, and we still have an active construction site, which is done at evenings and on weekends. The security key card system is operational, and everyone has a key card to get into the school. We had discussions about additional parking spaces. A few more were achieved, and I think those were done by the large generator, but the parking situation is still being addressed. The punch list continues to be an active thing, slowly being worked off. And Watkins Field on the concession stand and the restrooms, if you haven't gone by, the walls are up, the roof is being installed. When I went by Sunday, the rafters were up. I forget what you call them, I'll call them rafters. The rafters were up, and the roof was about to be installed, hopefully this week. And that's the end of my report, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns? Mrs. Hurst?
If they're adding more parking spaces, that would mean they would need more handicap spots. Is that everybody aware of the
Yeah.
ratio there? And how many do we have now?
I don't recall, but we were programmed, I think it was programmed for 183. And we need something like 200, and I think that's why we're parking along the side of the access road to achieve additional parking spaces. And like I said, a few more were developed around the generator. And so I don't know exactly what we have, if we have 200 yet, but that's what we're looking for.
In total for parking spaces?
Yeah. If you recall, the superintendent hired something like 25 more educators into the elementary
Yeah.
school, which were originally not planned for,
Okay.
but are needed, desperately needed.
I just want to be sure that if they're going to increase parking, they're going to have to relook at the amount of
Well,
handicap parking.
like I said, we're gonna keep working on it.
Goes by occupancy, doesn't it?
Thank you.
I think it does.
Luckily, no kids are driving yet, so.
By number.
At least not that school. Finance Subcommittee, Mr. Lafreniere.
Thank you. The Finance Subcommittee met on November 17th, reviewing the expense report, the Elm Street School, Helen May Sauter, and Waterford Street School budgets looked out of whack. This is due in part to the timing and in part to us holding the buildings longer than anticipated. And finally, in part, due to some of the expenses from the Elm Street School being in the central office budget, as we anticipated being in the building with Galt by now. Copier and postage is showing a negative, and this is, he's looking into this and believes a bill was misposted to this account. Professional services is showing a negative. This is due to the unbudgeted hiring of additional MTSS teacher, This will likely show as a negative most of the year and will be covered by the available funds at the end of the year. Telephone is showing a negative. This is due in small part to timing, but mostly due to a new bill for Gardner Elementary School. This will likely remain as a negative for the rest of the year until we see how much we can reduce the PO for existing telephone bills that are due to switch with Gardner Elm Street School. Be covered by available funds at the end of the year. And actually, we also talked about the Watkins Fields concessions / restroom and how that is still ongoing, but very close, getting very close to the end. And that was it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Lafreniere. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, we'll move on to Policy Subcommittee. Mrs. Hurst.
I always feel like my report is just so short. We met on November 22nd, and tonight we have 4 policies for first read. We have ADDA background checks, ADF local wellness policy, BBA, school committee powers and duties, DD, grants proposals, and special projects. You should all have those all in your packet. And then we have 2 tonight for second reading. ADC, that's tobacco products on school premises prohibited, and JIC, student discipline, student supervision, expulsion procedures.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Hurst. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns? All right, moving on to the Student Advisory Board. Amber Cameron.
Thank you. In our sports updates, our boys soccer team went to semifinals and our girls soccer team went to quarterfinals. Our 8th grade girls and 9th grade boys cross country team made it to the States. Our cheerleaders qualified for nationals in Dallas, Texas again, which will take place in January. And the cheerleaders are also league and regional champions. Our boys soccer are league champions along with our boys cross country team. And for our sports that just started this season, we have high school boys and girls basketball, indoor track, boys and girls swim, boys ice hockey, winter cheerleading, and our middle school basketball team. In our other updates, we want to congratulate our November Wildcat winners, Randy Marchand, Jacob Davis, and Sylvia Diaz-Garcia. We do this to thank and recognize our students for being such hardworking GHS citizens and representing our core values so well. Our drama program, led by Mrs. Landry, did an outstanding performance of the Brothers Grimm Spectaculathon, and we want to thank all the students who participated and put on a very funny, entertaining show. Our parent-teacher conferences went very well and offered an opportunity for our parents and guardians to meet with their students' teachers and to see all the great work students are doing in their classes. We want to give a special thanks to Mrs. Melissa Bork Silva for organizing the No Place for Hate event signing. All GHS students were presented with information and encouraged to sign the No Place for Hate pledge. Our GHS band got a silver medal at MICA, and lastly, our student council sponsored a toy drive, and we delivered 12 large shopping bags full of toys to the CAC.
Nice.
Awesome. All right, thank you, Amber. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, moving on to new business. Item 3461, first reading of the policies. As Mrs. Hurst said, there's the 4 policies that are in your packet. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns about those? Moving on to item 3462, the second reading of policies. That's policy ADC and policy JIC. Is there a motion to approve those policies?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion made by Mr. Schwartz, seconded by Mrs. Cormier, to approve those policies. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passed. Moving on to item number 3463, the grant funding approval. As you will see in your packet, we have a listing of all of the grants that have, I guess, been awarded at this point or are in the process of being awarded, and we're going to start voting on these. As part of the policy DD, we're changing the wording a little bit to require this. It's just in order to let everyone know what grants we're receiving, and then we're just basically accepting them at this point. So as you can see, there's the Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV grants. The Early Childhood Special Education Grant, and Individuals with Disabilities Act grant, the ESSER grant, the Comprehensive School Health Services grant, the Massachusetts Life Sciences Center STEM Equipment and Professional Development grant, the Mental and Behavioral Health grant, the Bar Foundation School Leadership Pipeline grant, Improving Ventilation and Air Quality grant, the Innovation Pathways Implementation and Support grant, the Early College Support grant, and there's 2 separate ones for that. So far, these are the grants that have been in this current fiscal year, so we're going to vote on these tonight, and then as the new grants come in, we'll vote on them if there is a grant that we need to vote on. So is there a motion to accept the grants that I just read off?
So move.
Motion made by Mrs. Leighton, seconded by Mr. Schwartz. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none,
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz?
Those 4 new grants that are on the list, just to let everybody know, that they have a value of $7,356,921. That's a lot of money. That's just 4 of the list that you read. And of course, there's a big one, which is an ESSA 3. That's over $5 million in that total. So just thank you, Courtney and Dr. Superintendent, Dr. Pellegrino, excuse me.
All thanks to Courtney. She knows how to apply for those grants. She knows how to apply for those grants, and many of those grants are competitive grants. And
Yes,
the applications are long. She works very hard. Paula's nodding her head because she has to work very closely with administrators and staff to make sure that we're not just writing grants to get money, we're getting what we need.
thank you.
Okay, so we'll vote on the motion to accept these grants. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to item 3464, the field trip for the GHS cheerleaders to Dallas, Texas for the Nationals, January 19th through the 23rd. All students will be accompanied by a parent. So we need to approve the trip so they can go. Is
Motion
there a
to approve.
motion? Motion
Second.
made by Mr. Lafreniere, seconded by Mr. Schwartz. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, when I got the form in the packet, it just said Gardner High School, a number of people, Dallas, Texas, didn't know what it was for. Till I saw it on the agenda. So I said, well, first I said, well, why are we going if I don't know what it's about? But I will. I concur.
I think it's become assumed because they've been national champions now. They just keep going. It's
Yes,
pretty amazing.
and they do a great job.
All right, so we'll vote on the motion to approve the field trip. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to item number 3465, school improvement plans and program of studies for GHS. Mrs. Bulger.
Thank you. So I'm going to quickly just give an update on the high school improvement plan and a couple of highlights from, the program of studies, which we're certainly still a work in progress, but, there are some new things that are coming along, and I can highlight some of the classes that we have now that are newer classes that have been going exceptionally well. Looking back at our goals for the high school improvement plan, one of the big goals that we had early on was to finish up curriculum mapping for all of our core subjects, which we were able to pretty much get completed last year. Those are always a work in progress as we're relooking at courses and sequencing, but the staff did a great job working on that last year. Incorporating our Tier 1 interventions, academic, behavioral, social, emotional. Our MTSS system, working on our MTSS system has been a huge focus of ours at the high school, really in the entire district. So we've done a great deal of work on that academically, behaviorally and social emotionally. Our admin and building leadership teams, and our tiered groups for MTSS meet very regularly, weekly, multiple times a week, continually looking at data, and really looking hard at those Tier 1 interventions for all of our students in the building. And we've made a lot of progress in that area. And really, we're starting to look at Tier 2 and Tier 3. So we're progressing quite a bit on that. When I was developing the school improvement plan, I was really focusing on Tier 1, but we really have been moving along with the other tiers as well. Looking to eliminate disparities in attendance and discipline subgroups, attendance and discipline for our subgroups. We have made quite a bit of headway on that. Certainly for our subgroups, as it pertains to discipline and suspension data, that has been continually improving over the years. Not too long ago, our suspension rates were disproportionate for our Black and African American students, our Hispanic students, and for our students on IEPs. And if you look, I submit the data in the my monthly school committee report, but that has greatly improved, which is something we're very proud of and we've been working very, very hard at. Always keeping an eye in particular on our special education students, which last year was still somewhat disproportional, and so far this year is not and is on target with our general education population. I know it's early in the year, but that's something we've worked really hard to be consistent with. Reducing failure rates, particularly with our special ed population. Again, there's been improvements, which has been through a lot of hard work, but certainly still room for growth. So that's, again, another big focus. And meeting targets for our MCAS in all subjects and subgroups. Again, we're proud of some progress that we've made. Of course, our overall accountability data this year improved greatly from 25% to 41%, which again is something we're very proud about and through a lot of hard work. But with the MCAS scores in particular, we recognize that we still have room for growth. So we're in an upward positive trajectory, and we're going to work hard to continue with that. The thing to remember with all of this is all of this work that we're doing is related to our MTSS systems. It all works together, our equity work, the PBIS, SEL, as well as the academics. And just the belief that a positive school climate and culture, positive relationships with adults, between adults and students that feel safe in the building, is really a big focus of ours. I had received a call from a reporter from the Gardner News who wanted to do an article on what's Gardner doing to improve their MCAS scores, making such progress. And I spoke with her at length, and I talked a lot about our school climate and what we focus on and building relationships. And she said, I think it's really interesting that that's what your focus has been on and you're seeing improvements. And of course we're focusing on the academic piece and our lessons and our curriculum, but we fully actually she said, I had a long conversation with the superintendent and he said the same thing. So it's really a big focus of ours to continue that just positive climate and culture, because we know how big of a difference that can make. And that impacts our attendance improving. So none of these things are done in isolation. It's a system, and we continue to work on all of those areas. Our early college and innovation pathways programs we're very proud of. We were at another meeting on that at the college this afternoon. We're always refining those programs, but both are growing. We're adding to those programs. We have still almost 50 students in the early college program. We have another 20 plus students at the high school taking additional college courses who are not officially enrolled in the early college program but are still accessing college level courses within the high school. We're adding pathways to our innovation pathways, focusing on adding some more college level business classes. We are adding an auto tech program that's starting next semester, CNA program that's starting next semester, high interest areas. Our manufacturing program is growing, and our whole tech and engineering program. I was talking to the superintendent and I was saying, you know, we are so fortunate. We have 3 full-time tech and engineering teachers. For a school our size, that's unheard of. Other schools are lucky to have 1, maybe 2, and I could use another one. There's such a high interest for those programs and what they're doing in our tech and engineering department. You know, the demand is high, and we're very excited about that. We're starting with the financial literacy program being a graduation requirement. That's cycling in now. We had started offering that course, so that's a big deal to us. So every graduating student will have taken a semester course in financial literacy. Something we added this year, a class we call life management. It's kind of home ec on steroids. So it's everything from cooking to some more budgeting. I see, Amber, you're in that class, aren't you? To first aid, self-defense. Like it's Coach Horn has really taken that and run. And I have to say, one day I go through that room all the time because you can't resist, because when you're walking down the hall, it smells so good all the time. I told them I'm going to gain 25 pounds this semester. Every time I leave my office, I come back and there's a plate of food on my desk. But I walk through all the time, and one day I'm like, you know what, I'm going to take some pictures, and kids are posing and they were making food, and so I put it on Facebook, and it completely blew up. It was in all my years as principal and posting to Facebook, it was the most shared post. I couldn't believe the comments. It was reshared so many times, and the community comments were like, "It's about time! Congratulations! So glad we're getting back to, you know, things that kids can use in, you know, in life." And you know, so sometimes it's, but you know, looking at courses like that. We got Rockwell grant money for it, that really make as big of an impact as, you know, a lot of the academic courses that we know are important and we need also. But so those are 2 classes we're super excited about. You know, our media specialist position has been key. Melissa Burke-Silva, the things that she's been able to do in that position, as also the equity and family engagement coordinator has been amazing. The supports that she can push into the building, into classrooms, and the extra supports for our students with guidance related stuff, the No Place for Hate, all of our diversity programming, looking at equity in our curriculum. You know, I said to the superintendent, it's all the things we know are important and we want to do, and sometimes you just can't find the time to do. To the extent that you want to. So to have a person that can really focus on that has been huge. And then obviously the addition of our college and career readiness coordinator has been extremely helpful. I don't know how Melissa Payne did that with her guidance job in coordinating all the early college and innovation pathways programming has certainly been key. what I have. Obviously, the program of studies we're working on, you know, and we'll have something to present to you within the next, you know, usually by February, for you to take a look at. And I'll be able to answer any questions on that as well.
If I can just add too, I think so many of the courses that they've chosen to run are from student choice. I mean, students drive the electives that we have. That whole course was created because people were asking for that course, and we're very fortunate to have teachers who are gung-ho and creative enough to put together the curriculum and do those kind of courses, and leadership who's making that happen. And, you know, without Paula's leadership and the leadership of her team, that wouldn't happen as well. So it really takes, you know, the entire school, and I love that it's driven by the students. And I have to say the students are just phenomenal, and, you know, the work that Paula and her team are doing with the SEL, you know, I'm just pulling up so we have, you know, the Swiss, so I can get all kinds of data really quickly. But I'm just looking at this report, and, you know, so when you're looking at, you remember those triangles, right? We're always trying to keep our students to only need tier 1 services, which is services all students need, all students receive. And 90%, a little over 90% of the kids in the school have 0 to 1 ODRs, and an ODR means an office discipline referral. That means 90% of the school has no disciplinary referrals or up to 1. The goal, minimally, according to PBIS stats and what you're really shooting for, is 80%, and we're over 90%. There are only 6% of our students who are between 2 and 5 ODR office referrals, and only 2.52% of the students in the school are at 6 or more ODRs, which is what we would consider to be needing tier 3 services. So that's all because it's very proactive. It's not just reactive. They're doing everything from the best screening to just gathering lots of data and using that data to inform how they're servicing students. So again, students' needs are what's driving how Gardner, all our schools, quite frankly, it's driving where you put your money, where we look at the grants. It drives everything because the students are at the center of it all. And if they're not, then why are we here? So I'm just really pleased, and I couldn't be more happy with, you know, Ms. Bolger's personal performance as well as the performance of her team, the staff, and the kids are just great. It's fun to work. It's fun to work in a place like this. Sorry, I talked more than I actually dragged you on further than your time allowed.
No.
So I will take all blame for that.
No?
We are very lucky to have you in this district, and thank you
Thank
for
you.
everything you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
I'm happy to see that the program is like a living document. It changes upon the needs of the students,
Yep.
which is very important.
Yep.
It was not that way when I went to the high school.
You know, it's interesting, when I was looking back, I know the last time we were redoing the school improvement plan, things change so quickly, right? And when you're writing an improvement plan that's over 3 years, you know, I remember we'd look at it and you'd be like, you know, that kind of was a focus, but that's not really our focus now, or we did that already, and, you know, it feels like it could change every year. But when I look back at this plan, when I was, you know, preparing to speak, I thought, I kind of, like, we worked hard on it with completing it, and I thought we kind of, I don't want to say we nailed it, but I was like, this is still what we were, like, I really felt like we chose where we were going to focus, and, you know, sometimes, you know, 2 years into it, I'm like, that's it, like, we're still focusing on early college, we're still focusing on our subgroups, we're still working on creating programming for, you know, the best programming for our students. So, you know, I feel like although yes, it changes all the time, but I really feel like we were just at our footing with this is what we need to do. And
I agree with that.
yeah.
Thank you for you and your staff for all the hard work that you do.
Can't do this without my staff.
It's evident, it was 37 students came in here with awarded scholarships. I think that's fantastic.
Yep.
It is fantastic. It's not I think, it is.
All right, thank you, Mrs.
Thank
Bulger.
you.
Any other questions? No? All right, thank you. Moving on to item 3466, the learning walks. Is that you, Dr. Gogan?
Do you want to mention just a couple words? We weren't going to do a full, we were going to do a full report, then we said we don't need to really do a full report because we just have our first round of data.
So, I think you'll recall in last month's MCAS presentation, we talked a little bit about some of the things we're doing in response to our MCAS data. And one of those things is really, talking about the MTSS process that Paula was just talking about. We're really focused now on looking at student work and looking at student task in the classroom. And we're looking at it in a much more rigorous way than we've looked at it in the past. So when we looked at our learning walk data this year, which learning walks occurred in the month of October this year, the scores really weren't relevant to last year's scores for a few different reasons. One is, just as I was saying, as we're looking at improving our MTSS process, we're looking at it through a much probably more focused and stricter lens. So we're if I want to say rating more harshly, and I don't mean that in a deficit sort of way, but we're really trying to pinpoint what we're looking for. So it doesn't really match up to how we've looked at learning walks in the past. And also, over the last couple of years with COVID, it was hard to get data on our learning walks because we had some hybrid things happening, and we had students that we were doing learning walks virtually. We couldn't tell if there was engagement because students had their screens off, so we don't really know. There was a lot of missing data. So this year we took the opportunity to start and create a new baseline. So our scores are much lower, I would say, in the rigor and the engagement because we're looking at it differently. But what we're really excited about from the October learning walks that we did, just doing our rounds on a weekly basis with principals over the months of, just from the month of November and the first couple of weeks in December, we're already seeing very different student tasks in the classroom. We're seeing a much different level of student engagement in the classroom, and the tasks that are being asked of students are at a much higher level of rigor. So we're really excited about that. We're expecting to see large gains in our learning walk data in the spring. So I would love to do a presentation in the spring, maybe in May or June, to show you how we've progressed just from the fall to this year. And we expect that to grow even more next year. So that's where we stand right now with learning walks.
All right, thank you. Dr. Gogan, is any questions, comments, concerns? All right, thank you. Moving on to item number 3467, the College and Career Readiness Coordinator. That is in your packet. Is there any questions, comments, concerns? Item number...
I'm happy to see all the participation of the students that are enrolling in these advanced programs, and looking forward to the next 2 semesters with the auto thing, and that's really going to be a hands-on course. Love to see that. Great job.
Moving on to item number 3468, Curriculum Coordinator Update. That is also included in your packet. Any questions, comments? Moving on to item number 3469, the Director of Health Services. That is also included in your packet. Any questions, comments? And then the item number 3470, the Grants Administrator Update. Obviously, we voted on all the grants, so we're aware of how much Courtney is doing with us. But is there any questions, comments regarding that report? No. And moving on to Special Education Update, item number 3471. Any questions, comments, or concerns about that? Item number 3472, the CPAC Update. Mrs. Hurst.
I spoke with Lori, and in the beginning of the month, she attended a training through the Federation of Children with Special Needs. It was the orientation for new CPAC leaders, so she was pretty excited about that. They had their basic rights workshop. Joyce, did you present that?
Yes.
And she didn't give me the date. That was the only thing I didn't have.
I put it in my report.
Okay,
It's November.
good. All right. She set up during the open houses at the middle school and the elementary school with informational tables. Asked questions, was there to answer questions any parents might have. And the next meeting date will be announced later after the holidays.
And when you said Lori, you mean Lori?
Oh, I'm
Davis, right?
sorry. Yep.
No, I just wanted to make sure, because she's the one who's running the CPAC now, right?
Yes, the president, the CPAC president.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Hurst. Is there any questions, comments? Moving on to item number 3473, the MSBA new building project.
It's moving along. They're still doing a lot more outside work. We did vote recently to have a temporary playground. That was a big deal. While we don't have the surface that we need,
Yeah,
we need something between now and the end of the school year to get those kids outside. So we are going to have like a temporary one with rubber chips to allow the kids to be able to play outside, because it's just, they're cooped up in there. When I walk throughs, we see kids playing gym, in the hallways, as the gym's being finished. But kids need that time to be able to run around and play for their own needs.
Right, we've
So I just
learned
wanted
a
to
lot
mention
about the pour-in-place rubber.
Yes, we have. A lot of that.
Temperature-wise, I forget what else, there's a lot of stuff. Any questions, comments? Yes, Mrs. Leighton?
I think I read in the report that the gym was supposed to be inspected today. Do you know if that all went to plan, or was it?
I actually don't know. I don't know if that all went to plan.
Okay.
So nobody reported to me yet. But
Okay.
that's a great question.
Yeah, I
Kids are
think we-
excited to get in the gym.
What there was is,
It was, yeah, I mean, it
what
was.
there was, as I know it, that the sprinkler system, because we have wooden bleachers, should be installed by now. And then that would activate, after it gets inspected, then we have use of the gym.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
Yeah,
all been
yeah.
done
The
yet.
last thing was there were some the pads, the pads that go against the walls.
Okay.
There were a few pads that they had to make cutouts for the electrical system. So I know that we're supposed to be working on that on Friday and over the weekend to make sure they finished up with that. So other than that, everything was installed and ready to go. So I'm hopeful. I'll check on that. So thanks for the reminder.
All right, moving on to communications.
I have to say, tonight, you saw, our high school, which is, important part of the ending of this, of the secondary career for our students. And I have to say, the early college program I was just at, with Paula and Melissa Payne at the regional convening, and we are just light years ahead of so many other districts. I'm so proud of that work. But throughout the district, I was doing a walkthrough at the elementary school, and we just hired, by the way, a special education teacher for a substantially separate room, which is, we're still having trouble getting into the district, speech language pathologists and specialists like special education teachers. So we're doing all we can to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students. But I even look at that whole the PBIS triangle for our elementary school. Less than 2% of our students are at that tier 3 level, and again, our goal is 5% or less. We are ahead of where where most districts are. Let me put it that way, because our goal is always to do better and to do the best work. But that's all due to Joyce, Amber, the teams in the schools, the teachers on the ground working with kids, and it's kids just growing and learning, and it's wonderful. Our sports teams this year have been phenomenal. I'm really excited about the cheerleaders again going to Texas. I do want to mention on a difficult thing. These are difficult times for all of us, in terms of the holidays, so we have to watch out for each other. There was an incident with a child out in Narragansett, this past Friday, and it was sad. It was sad, but there are a lot of kids who are hurting. A lot of our folks are hurting. So look out for each other. And I think that's more of a public service announcement than anything else. But we have to really support each other because although the holidays are wonderful times, you have kids who are raising money and getting gifts for kids, and there are so many wonderful things. But this is a tough time for a lot of us, a lot of folks. So we need to watch out for each other. And I'll leave it at that. A lot of good stuff.
All right.
Should have left it on a high note, but.
All right, thank you, Dr. Pellegrino. Moving on to the final comments of the school committee, Mrs. Leighton.
Congratulations to all the scholarship recipients. I walked in, I said, oh, it's a full house. Look at this is great. I was kind of struck by what Principal Bolger said about her Gardner News interview about the surprise that social emotional learning and the things that are being done to kind of address students' needs, to keep things student-centered, would have such a profound impact on academics. But I think that's maybe something that was overlooked up until about 3 years ago, when we all of a sudden didn't have that connection. And just that, that sense of connection and belonging and whatnot, like it's doing great things for our students, but it's going to do great things for our society. It's going to do great things for our city, our communities, and we're going to send these students out into the world to be people someday. Real people, real grown-ups with real grown-up things. And I think it's really important that, that these things keep being brought to the forefront of this community's attention, because this is bigger than just kids getting good MCAS scores. This is bigger than kids, getting into college. This is people growing up and becoming part of our society. And you just mentioned, Dr. Pellegrino, this is a rough time of year for a lot of people. There are a lot of students that they're not looking forward to the holiday break. And, just to echo what you said, just take care of each other. And I hope, all the great work that's being done in the district. Thank you to everyone, and happy holidays. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Leighton. Mrs. Hurst?
I feel very inspired when I see all the students come in and get their awards, and it means a lot to me as a parent and a school committee member, just to see all the good things that are happening. I just want to reiterate too that this is a extremely hard time of year for people. Don't expect that people are going to ask for help. It's important to ask people what they need. My brother was a very insightful person, and you each have a little heart tonight, and he had written one year for Christmas that it's important to keep it simple. Recognize love, give love, share love, and receive love. So that's my message to everybody tonight.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Hurst. Amber, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I just want to also congratulate all the students that were recognized tonight. I think it's just when they're doing the call, hearing names, those are kids I see, I go to school, it's just, I'm very proud of them. I'm very proud of how far some of these students have come. And I know Mrs. Bolger is always telling me, you can give your say and then you can leave. You don't have to stay throughout the whole meetings. But I genuinely enjoy staying and listening to all, the team members. And I think that there's a great team of people. And thank you for helping me.
All right, thank you. Mr. Schwartz?
Events coming up tomorrow night. The middle school winter band concert. Along with that, you can get your COVID shot. There's a COVID clinic tomorrow at the middle school, 5 to 8 p.m. And on Wednesday, the middle school chorus concert, along with another COVID clinic from 6 to 7 p.m. See you there. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Mr. Lafreniere?
Thank you. It was nice to see how successful our early college courses are and how many students are involved in all that, and it's very successful with that. But that life experience class course is a great idea. I have to say, when I was in school, I took home ec and I took typing, and I must admit, I took typing because you knew there was more girls in there than guys at the time. But I think what I've learned in that class I've used more in my life than anything else. If I hadn't taken that typing course, I would be lost on a computer now. And I've always been, since then, been able to type faster than anybody. So I used that my whole life. So it just shows you those courses do make a really or a really good impact on the students.
No matter why you choose them.
Right. Yes, just a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all. Thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Cormier?
A very good meeting, very informative presentations, and I'll keep it short and sweet. Have a good, happy, healthy holiday.
All right, thank you. And I think I've talked enough today as well. Happy holidays, everyone, and congratulations to the students that did receive the scholarships. And with that, there's no need for an executive session. And with that, we're in line for an adjournment. Is there a motion to
So
adjourn?
moved.
So
Second.
motion made by Mr. Lafreniere, seconded by Mr. Schwartz. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion adjourned. Meeting adjourned.